For years, the world saw Camilla as the ultimate outsider, an ordinary Englishwoman marrying into royalty. But what researchers have revealed shatters every assumption. Camilla was already descended from King Charles II, with a great-grandmother who was King Edward VII's most powerful confidant, and an ancestor who built the very balcony at Buckingham Palace where she now stands. So how did a supposed commoner inherit royal blood and transform from outsider to living symbol of the family legacy? Tabloid headlines in 2005 painted Camilla as the ultimate outsider, a so-called commoner stepping into the heart of the British monarchy. Yet from her earliest days, Camilla Rosemary Shand's life was shaped by privilege and aristocratic connections that ran far deeper than most realized. Born on July 17, 1947, at King's College Hospital in London, Camilla was the eldest child of Major Bruce Shand and Rosalind Cubitt. Her father, Bruce Shand, had already earned a reputation for courage, awarded the Military Cross for bravery as a tank commander in North Africa during World War II. He returned from the war a decorated officer, settling his family in the rolling hills of Sussex. Camilla's mother, Rosalind, carried the Cubitt name, a family woven into the fabric of Britain's upper class. Rosalind's father, Roland Cubitt, was the third Baron Ashcombe, a title that came with a seat in the House of Lords and a legacy of building some of London's most elegant neighborhoods. The Cubitts were not just landowners, they were architects of the city itself, their names synonymous with Baron and Belgravia. Childhood for Camilla meant summers at country estates, weekends riding horses, and a home life surrounded by reminders of a distinguished lineage. But it's the women in Camilla's family who first forged the path to royalty. Her great-grandmother, Alice Keppel, was born Alice Frederica Edmonstone in Scotland in 1868. At 23, Alice married George Keppel, a younger son of the Earl of Albemarle. The match brought her into the orbit of high society, but it was her wit and charm that caught the attention of Edward, Prince of Wales, in 1898. He was 57, she was 29, and their relationship would last 12 years, until the king's death in 1910. Alice became famous not just as the king's companion, but as a trusted confidant. Ministers and politicians often sought her help, knowing she could calm Edward's temper or persuade him on matters of state. She was, in many ways, the power behind the throne, her influence stretching far beyond the drawing rooms of London. Alice Keppel had two daughters, Violet and Sonia. Sonia, born in 1900, would become Camilla's grandmother, carrying forward the family's connection to royalty. Through Alice's relationship with King Edward VII, the Keppel line gained not just social standing, but a place in the inner circle of the monarchy itself. Far from being an outsider, Camilla was born into a family accustomed to royal company, their stories intertwined with the history of the crown for generations. Louise de Querouaille arrived in England from Brittany in 1670, sent as a maid of honor to King Charles II's sister. Within 2 years, she became the king's favorite, and more than that, a trusted confidant, a French agent, and the mother of his 7th son. In 1672, Charles Lennox was born. 3 years later, at the age of 3, he was granted the titles Duke of Richmond, Earl of March, and Baron Setrington. Louise secured for her son not just noble rank, but a £2,000 annual pension and the right to coal royalties, placing him among the most privileged children in England. Lennox's legitimacy may have been unconventional, but his status was undeniable. The bloodline did not fade into obscurity. Charles Lennox's daughter, Lady Anne Lennox, married Willem van Keppel, the 2nd Earl of Albemarle. Their union blended the royal Stuart line with Dutch nobility, and their descendants would inherit both titles and influence. Over the generations, this lineage moved through the Keppel family, with each marriage weaving the royal thread deeper into the fabric of the British aristocracy. By the 19th century, the Keppels were established fixtures in court circles, carrying the legacy of Charles II not just in name but in blood. While royal blood flowed quietly through Camilla's veins, another ancestor was shaping the very stage of monarchy. Thomas Cubitt, born in 1788, started life as the son of a Norfolk carpenter. Driven by ambition, he traveled to India as a young man, saved every penny, and returned to London to launch his own building firm. Cubitt's vision transformed London. He designed and constructed entire neighborhoods, including Belgravia, Bloomsbury, and Pimlico, creating the grand terraces and leafy squares that define the city's West End. His reputation for reliability and elegance brought commissions from the highest quarters. Queen Victoria herself called him our Cubitt. In 1847, Cubitt received the most prestigious commission of his career to rebuild the east front of Buckingham Palace. He designed and constructed the iconic central balcony, the very spot where the royal family appears for national celebrations, weddings, and jubilees. The balcony, supported by grand columns and overlooking the Mall, became a symbol of British monarchy. When Queen Camilla steps onto that balcony, she stands on the work of her own great-great-great-grandfather. The connection is not just symbolic, but physical. A living heir standing atop her ancestors' stone and vision, waving to crowds from a platform built by her family's hands. Through the royal blood of Charles II and the enduring legacy of Thomas Cubitt, Camilla's ancestry is written into the story of the monarchy itself. Her family tree is not a footnote but a foundation, proving that the so-called outsider was already bound to the crown, both by blood and by stone. On June 11, 1855, a wedding took place in Hamilton, Ontario, that quietly joined two worlds. William Coutts Keppel, the 7th Earl of Albemarle and descendant of English nobility, married Sophia Mary MacNab, daughter of Sir Allan Napier MacNab, who was then Premier of the Province of Canada. The ceremony at Dundurn Castle was more than a society event, and it blended the British aristocracy with the rising Canadian elite. Sophia's father, Sir Allan, had played a decisive role in shaping early Canadian politics, steering the country through the turbulence of the 1850s and earning a baronetcy for his service. But Sophia's roots ran even deeper into North America's past. Through her mother's line, she descended from Marie-Joseph Guyon, born in Quebec in 1715, and from there, the family tree stretches back to the earliest days of New France. In 1634, Jean Guyon dit Bouisson, a master mason from Perche, France, signed a contract to cross the Atlantic and settle in Quebec. He arrived that June, part of a small group welcomed into a land of forests and rivers, where everything had to be built from scratch. Alongside him was Zachary Cloutier, another master builder who would help raise the first manor house in Beauport. The legacy of these pioneers is staggering. By 1800, Zachary Cloutier's descendants numbered 10,500. Today, genealogists estimate that more than 20 million people can trace their ancestry to the French-Canadian settlers of the 1630s. Camilla, through her 9th great-grandfather Jean Guyon, is one of them, a living link between the earliest families of Quebec and the heart of the British monarchy. Genealogists at FindMePast and Ancestry.com have traced Camilla's family tree into unexpected territory, revealing a web of celebrity connections that stretches far beyond the British Isles. According to a 2008 Ancestry.com study, Camilla and Madonna are 9th cousins, sharing the same ancestor, Zachary Cloutier, one of the original French-Canadian pioneers who arrived in Quebec in 1634. Through Jean Guyon, another founder of New France, Camilla is related to Celine Dion, whose family line also leads back to those first stonemasons of Quebec. Researchers at Genie.com have linked Camilla to Beyoncé, tracing the thread through French-Canadian settlers whose descendants migrated to Louisiana. On the English side, FindMePast discovered that Camilla and actor Kit Harington both descend from John Tufton, second Earl of Thanet, making them distant cousins through the old aristocratic lines of Kent. Yet the story doesn't end with celebrity cousins. The Cubitt and Keppel dynasties, once separate pillars of British society, merged in 1923 when Roland Cubitt, the third Baron Ashcombe, married Sonia Keppel, granddaughter of Alice Keppel. This union brought together the master builder's legacy and the king's companion's bloodline, uniting two families with deep royal and aristocratic roots. The Cubitts, whose barony was created in 1892, had risen from builders to barons in just 2 generations. The Keppels, intertwined with the royal court for centuries, brought the Stuart and Lennox bloodlines into the mix. Their daughter, Rosalind Cubitt, would later become Camilla's mother, making Camilla the living convergence of these storied lines. The so-called outsider, once labeled a commoner by the press, stands at the center of a family network that links royalty, aristocracy, and even global pop icons. The myth of Camilla as an interloper dissolves in the face of evidence. Her ancestry is not only royal, but global, woven through centuries of dynastic marriages, transatlantic journeys, and unexpected celebrity connections. Today, Queen Camilla's story reminds us that ancestry is rarely what it seems. In an age obsessed with identity and origin, her lineage blurs the line between outsider and heir. Royalty, it turns out, can be written in blood or rediscovered in the archives. What connections might your own story hold?